Hello, this is Professor Dr. Deepika Srivastav from the English Department. Today's lecture is for BA 4th semester students. The topic of my lecture is 8 Schools of Indian Poetics. Before this, I have already taken up in detail Indian epic tradition and also classical Indian drama. This is the concluding lecture on Indian classical poetics. Now, we are familiar with the Aristotle's poetics, its definition and principles of poetry. But today we will focus only on Indian poetics because this is what is the lecture is all about. It won't be a comparative study as of now. Before I begin my lecture, let us examine the term poetics. What does it mean? What does it signify? Poetics is the theory of literary forms and literary discourse. The term poetic is of Greek origin. It literally means creative or productive. There were three major movements in Western poetics, beginning with Aristotle's tradition. Then, later, much later in the Romantic era, it was totally expressionism. And in the 20th century, it was a return to Aristotle's theory, followed by the theory of poetics. That was the Western poetics. But today, we will focus only on the Indian poetics. I was simply giving you a brief explanation of the term poetics. Indian poems are based on Sanskrit poetry solely, which developed gradually and in many directions. The most important is, of course, Ramayana, undoubtedly, which was written by the great Sanskrit poet Valmiki and is considered the first poem in Sanskrit. It is the most popular and most exquisite poem so far written by any Sanskrit scholar. It is also the most profound creation. Equally important is the Mahabharata, which was written by Ved Vyas. Others are shlokas, parvas, Vedas, Upanishads, etc. In Indian poetics, Bharat Muni, Panini, Kalidas, Bahama, and other great poets wrote about the history and culture of a great country, India. They introduced us to the richness of Bharat. Poetry is a form of literature that can be read, heard, and be seen. In all the three forms, it is a pleasure to go through poetry. It is also the most elevated form of literature and therefore it is placed above drama, above prose, and above fiction. It has different names in poetics like Alamkara, which is principle of figurativeness, and Vikroti, which is the principle of deviation. Now let us understand the significance of Alamkara. Alamkara means ornaments in the common language, which are used by women to decorate their beauty, not only in India, all over the world. But in literature, it has a different meaning altogether. Alamkara is the ornaments of the poem or figurative speech which can decorate words and meanings and is an essential part of poetry. The more alamkaras in a poem, the more its appeal. So it is the form of decoration of a poem. Bahama is the first alamkara poetician. There are two types of alamkara. The first is shabd alamkara or meaning of words and thoughts. And the second, of course, is we will take it later. Now first let us understand the term alamkara. There, Mammat describes 61 figures of speech and groups them into 7 types. First, let us examine these 7 groups. The first is Vyakti Rekha, or it is also known as dissimilitude. The second is Aprastuta Prashna, or indirect description. The third is Samuchay, which is also called concatenation. The fourth is Rupaka, which means metaphor. The fifth is Upama, which we commonly know as simile. The sixth is Deepika, or strange figure, and the seventh is Virod, or contradiction. The different classificatory system can be seen to be based on the following points. Now you have to consider these points as well. The first point is grammar. The second is the value of figures. The third is objects with which they are compared, upma. The fourth is syntax. The fifth is semantic basis such as a similarity. The sixth is objects compared, upame. And the last is coherence. Coherence. Now, after having dealt with all this, we come to Vakrokti. Now, what is Vakrokti? It is a part of language and literature. It is not only a separate identity but also an important special element. Kantak is known as the originator of the Vakrokti school. Vakrokti is the most misunderstood and misinterpreted part of language. It means crooked, indirect, or unique expression of speech. However, Vakrokti is only a species of Alamkara and does not merit a special mention here. It is basis of all Alamkaras as the beautification in poetry. Vakroti refers to the gunas pertaining to sound and sense. In the same way, Kantak incorporates ras, riti, alamkara, guna theories together. This way, they are all connected with each other. Now, let us take up the categories of Indian poetic theory. When we read Indian poetics, there are many questions about poem and kavya. The most important amongst all this concept is ras. Ras theory finds its root in late Vedic period in Atharveda, which was written roughly from 200 BC to 100 BC. Bharat Muni gave a statement about it in his book Natya Shastra. This is the Indian treatise on the performing arts. Ras is realization of one's own consciousness as colored by emotions. Ras and emotions cannot be directly expressed through words. They can only be suggested by words. Ras theory is built around the concept of bhav, which is again subdivided into vibhav, sthai bhav, sankari bhav, anubhav, and sastik bhav. Now, after having said this, I will again briefly take up Vakrokti because I've already mentioned about it. This is the theory of language of literature. Kantak was the father of this theory. As mentioned earlier, it means crooked, indirect, or unique poetic expression or speech. Vakrokti of Kantak is a synonym for principles of beauty underlying all kinds of poetic language. The next point I want to take up is Dhwani. Dhwani, as you all know, means sound. This is regarded as the soul or vital essence that gives life to all other aspects of literary beauty, be it guna, be it riti, be it alamkara, or be it vritti. The grammarians used this term to refer to sound, and they spoke of two kinds of sound. The first is prakrit dhvani, and the second is Vaikrit Dhwani. Prakrit refers to pattern of Ras theory, while Vaikrit Dhwani implies actual sounds of words spoken. What is Dhwani? Of course, Dhwani, as you know, is sound, but it is a theory of meaning, of symbolism, and this principle leads to the poetry of suggestion being accepted as the highest kind of poetry. Now we move on to the next, and this is Riti. The Riti school of poetics is represented fully by its chief exponent Vamana, who flourished in Kashmir towards the close of the 8th century. Riti, as you all know, means thinking. The next point is Auchatya. Auchatya means as the property of an expression being an exact and appropriate analog of the expressed. It has affinities with Longinus's theory of the sublime. Acharya Chemendra was the main founder of this theory. Now, let me add another vital classification which I had not mentioned earlier. Bharat Muni enunciated 8 ras in the Natya Shastra, which, as you know, is an ancient text of dramatic theory and of other performance arts written way back in the 200 BC. The Natya Shastra mentions 6 ras in one section, and in another section on ras, it states and discusses 8 primary ras. Each ras, according to the Natya Shastra, has a presiding deity and a specific color. Bharat Muni established the following. Let us take it one by one. The first is Shringar. Shringar, you know what it means. It means romance, it means love, it means to decorate oneself. Its presiding deity is Lord Vishnu, the supreme god of all Hindus. The color associated with Shringar is light green. Next we come to Hasya. Now Has, again, it, you know the Hindi meaning. It means laughter, it means mirth, it means comedy. Hasya is something which makes us laugh. The presiding deity is Shiv Bhagwan and the color is white. The next is Karunyam, meaning Karuna is compassion. So Karunyanam is mercy and the presiding deity is Yama. The color associated with this is grey. Next we come to Vibhut Sam, meaning disgust. Presiding deity is again Shiv Bhagwan and the color is blue. The next is Bhayanakam. Bhayanak means horror, terror. So Bhayanakam also means horror, terror. The presiding deity again is Yam and the color is black. As you know, Yam is the god of death and he is seen riding a buffalo. So the color associated with Yam is black. Next we come to Viram. Veer means heroism. Viram also means heroism. The presiding deity is Indra Bhagwan, the god of Varsha. And the color is saffron. The last is Adbhutam. Adbhut meaning wonder. So Adbhutam also means wondrous. Presiding deity is Brahma, the creator, and the color is yellow. So we have taken these 8 established ras. Now ras means juice. In ordinary parlance, it means juice, essence or taste. It is a concept of Indian art of any visual, literary or musical work that evokes an emotion or feeling in the reader or audience but cannot be described. Rasas are created by bhavs. According to Ras theory of Natya Shastra, entertainment is a desired effect of performing arts but is not the primary goal. The primary goal is to transport the individual or the reader or the audience into another parallel reality full of wonder and bliss, where he experiences the essence of his own consciousness. The Indian theory of ras is also found in the Hindu arts, and it is prevalent in the neighboring countries of Malaysia and other South Asian countries. The principle of ras is the kernel of Indian poetics. It is a great gift of Bharat Muni to Indian poetics and literature. It is in fact essence of literature. Poetry cannot survive without ras. Now, to conclude, I wish to say that Indian poetics and Indian literature in general have a long history dating back to Vedic times. They were written in various Indian languages such as Vedic Sanskrit and classical Sanskrit. Of course, they are only to be understood by people who have an in depth knowledge of Sanskrit. But nonetheless, the ethics and the creativity of the Sanskrit scholars is there for you and for all Sanskrit lovers to understand. Poetry reflects diverse spiritual traditions. Many Indian poets have been inspired by mystical and magical experiences. These are all written in the Sanskrit classical poetry. Poetry is the oldest form of literature, as you all know, and has a rich tradition, whether it is written or whether it is recited orally. Any attempt to discuss it in a brief manner as this can only be a sketchy endeavor. I have tried my best to make you understand the principles of Sanskrit poetics, but you have to thoroughly study it to get it to get all the nuances well versed within you. I mean, this is just a very short and a very brief introduction. For an in depth study, you have to go through all the literature that is available, visit the library, and you will understand its nuances, its beauty, and its vastness, its splendor. With these words, I conclude my lecture on the 8 schools of Indian poetics. Please consult more on this. Thank you.